Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
Law, the cessation of cohabitation of man and wife, either by mutual agreement or under a court order. Coming apart. The distance between things. Fragile items require separation and cushioning. Sorting one thing from others. The separation of wheat from chaff. The act of dividing or disconnecting. The social act of separating or parting company. The separation of church and state. The space where a division or parting occurs. He hid in the separation between walls. The state of lacking unity. The termination of employment, by resignation or dismissal. Law, the cessation of cohabitation of man and wife, either by mutual agreement or under a court order. A judicial decree regulating the rights and responsibilities of a married couple living apart. The termination or disintegration of a relationship between persons or nations. Coming apart. The act of releasing from an attachment or connection. The state of being isolated or detached. Avoiding emotional involvement. Coming apart. A small unit of troops of special composition. The difference in pitch between two notes. A definite length of time marked off by two instants. The distance between things. A set containing all points, or all real numbers, between two given endpoints. A stopping. A stopping. A cessation of the thunder. The act of making something different, as e.g. the size of a garment. An event that occurs when something passes from one state or phase to another. The act of revising or altering, involving reconsideration and modification. The act of making something different, as e.g. the size of a garment. An event that occurs when something passes from one state or phase to another. The neighborhood had undergone few modifications since his last visit years ago. The grammatical relation that exists when a word qualifies the meaning of the phrase. Slightly modified copy, not an exact copy. A modification of last year's model. Lay aside, abandon, or leave for another. The car changed lanes. Cause to change, make different, cause a transformation. The discussion has changed my thinking about the issue. Exchange or replace with another, usually of the same kind or category. He changed his name. An event that occurs when something passes from one state or phase to another. The change was intended to increase sales. Become different in some particular way, without permanently losing one's or its former characteristics or essence. Her mood changes in accordance with the weather. Give to, and receive from, one another. Would you change places with me? Become deeper in tone. His voice began to change when he was 12 years old. Change from one vehicle or transportation line to another. She changed in Chicago on her way to the East Coast. A difference that is usually pleasant. It is a refreshing change to meet a woman mechanic. A different or fresh set of clothes. She brought a change in her overnight bag. A relational difference between states, especially between states before and after some event. He attributed the change to their marriage. A thing that is different. He inspected several changes before selecting one. Change clothes. Put on different clothes. Coins of small denomination regarded collectively. He had a pocketful of change. Money received in return for its equivalent in a larger denomination or a different currency. He got change for a 20 and used it to pay the taxi driver. Remove or replace the coverings of. Father had to learn how to change the baby. The action of changing something. The change of government had no impact on the economy. The balance of money received when the amount you tender is greater than the amount due. I paid with a 20 and pocketed the change. The result of alteration or modification. There were marked changes in the lining of the lungs. Undergo a change. Become different in essence, losing one's or its original nature. She changed completely as she grew older. Go far ahead of. He outdistanced the other runners. Size of the gap between two places. The distance from New York to Chicago. The interval between two times. The distance from birth to death. Indifference by personal withdrawal. Emotional distance. A distant region. I could see it in the distance. A remote point in time. If that happens, it will be at some distance in the future. Keep at a distance. We have to distance ourselves from these events in order to continue living. The property created by the space between two objects or points. An operation that segregates items into groups according to a specified criterion. The bottleneck in mail delivery is the process of sorting. The basic cognitive process of arranging into classes or categories. Grouping by class or kind or size. The act of changing the unity or wholeness of something. Action taken by a group of people. Printing. A block of type without a raised letter, used for spacing between words or sentences. The unlimited expanse in which everything is located. They tested his ability to locate objects in space. The interval between two times. It all happened in the space of 10 minutes. Any location outside the Earth's atmosphere. The astronauts walked in outer space without a tether. A blank character used to separate successive words in writing or printing. He said the space is the most important character in the alphabet. A blank area. Write your name in the space provided. An area reserved for some particular purpose. The laboratory's floor space. An empty area, usually bounded in some way between things. The architect left space in front of the building. One of the areas between or below or above the lines of a musical staff. The spaces are the notes FACE. Place at intervals. Indicate through a symbol, formula, etc. The territory occupied by a nation. A politically organized body of people under a single government. The state has elected a new president. Chemistry. The three traditional states of matter are solids, fixed shape and volume, and liquids, fixed volume and shaped by the container, and gases, filling the container. The solid state of water is called ice. The territory occupied by one of the constituent administrative districts of a nation. His state is in the deep south. Put before. The federal department in the United States that sets and maintains foreign policies. Express in words. State your opinion. A state of depression or agitation. He was in such a state you just couldn't reason with him. The group of people comprising the government of a sovereign state. The state has lowered its income tax. The way something is with respect to its main attributes. The current state of knowledge. Something that results. A phenomenon that follows and is caused by some previous phenomenon. Something that results. The final point in a process. Occurring with or following as a consequence. The resultant savings were considerable. A vector that is the sum of two or more other vectors. Something that results. The end of a word, a suffix or inflectional ending or final morpheme. The act of ending something. The termination of the agreement. A coming to an end of a contract period. A place where something ends or is complete. Something that results. A phenomenon that follows and is caused by some previous phenomenon. Produce as a result or residue. Issue or terminate, in a specified way, state, etc., end. Result in tragedy. A statement that solves a problem or explains how to solve the problem. He computed the result to 4 decimal places. The semantic role of the noun phrase whose referent exists only by virtue of the activity denoted by the verb in the clause. Something that results. He listened for the results on the radio. Come about or follow as a consequence. Nothing will result from this meeting. Tennis. A score consisting of winning a game when your opponent was serving. He was up 2 breaks in the second set. Breaking of hard tissue such as bone. The break seems to have been caused by a fall. Enter someone's virtual or real property in an unauthorized manner, usually with the intent to steal or commit a violent act. Be released or become known, of news. Fail to agree with. Be in violation of, as of rules or patterns. An act of delaying or interrupting the continuity. It was presented without commercial breaks. Lessen in force or effect. Break a fall. An escape from jail. The breakout was carefully planned. Interrupt a continued activity. Force out or release suddenly and often violently something pent up. Break into tears. Any frame in which a bowler fails to make a strike or spare. The break in the 8th frame cost him the match. Go to pieces. Ruin completely. Act in disregard of laws, rules, contracts, or promises. Break a law. Become fractured. Break or crack on the surface only. Do a break dance. Kids were break dancing at the street corner. Prevent completion. Break off the negotiations. Become separated into pieces or fragments. Make known to the public information that was previously known only to a few people or that was meant to be kept a secret. Terminate. Break a lucky streak. Surpass in excellence. Break a record. Discontinue an association or relation. Go different ways. The act of breaking something. The breakage was unavoidable. Happen. Break down, literally or metaphorically. A pause from doing something, as work. We took a 10-minute break. Stop operating or functioning. Fracture a bone of. Reduce to bankruptcy. My daughter's fancy wedding is going to break me. Assign to a lower position. Reduce in rank. Geology. A crack in the Earth's crust resulting from the displacement of one side with respect to the other. Break a piece from a whole. Break a branch from a tree. Make submissive, obedient, or useful. The horse was tough to break. A time interval during which there is a temporary cessation of something. Move away or escape suddenly. Nobody can break out. This prison is high security. A personal or social separation, as between opposing factions. They hoped to avoid a break in relations. Some abrupt occurrence that interrupts an ongoing activity. There was a break in the action when a player was hurt. Destroy the completeness of a set of related items. The book dealer would not break the set. Cease an action temporarily. Let's break for lunch. An unexpected piece of good luck. He finally got his big break. An abrupt change in the tone or register of the voice, as at puberty or due to emotion. Then there was a break in her voice. A sudden dash. He made a break for the open door. Be broken in. If the new teacher won't break, we'll add some stress. Become punctured or penetrated. Cause the failure or ruin of. This play will either make or break the playwright. Cause to give up a habit. Change direction suddenly. Change suddenly from one tone quality or register to another. Come forth or begin from a state of latency. Come into being. Come to an end. Crack. Of the male voice in puberty. His voice is breaking, he should no longer sing in the choir. Curl over and fall apart in surf or foam, of waves. Destroy the integrity of, usually by force, cause to separate into pieces or fragments. Diminish or discontinue abruptly. Emerge from the surface of a body of water. Exchange for smaller units of money. I had to break a $100 bill just to buy the candy. Fall sharply. Find a flaw in. Break an alibi. Find the solution or key to. Break the code. Give up. Break cigarette smoking. Happen or take place. Things have been breaking pretty well for us in the past few months. Interrupt the flow of current in. Break a circuit. Invalidate by judicial action. Make a rupture in the ranks of the enemy or one's own by quitting or fleeing. Make the opening shot that scatters the balls. Pierce or penetrate. Render inoperable or ineffective. Scatter or part. Separate from a clinch, in boxing. The occurrence of breaking. The break in the dam threatened the valley. The opening shot that scatters the balls in billiards or pool. Undergo breaking. Vary or interrupt a uniformity or continuity. Weaken or destroy in spirit or body. Act in disregard of laws, rules, contracts, or promises. A personal or social separation, as between opposing factions. Make an opening or gap in. A failure to perform some promised act or obligation. An opening, especially a gap in a dike or fortification. A personal or social separation, as between opposing factions. A gap between cloud masses. The sun shone through a rift in the clouds. A narrow fissure in rock. Separate or cause to separate abruptly. A personal or social separation, as between opposing factions. State of being torn or burst open. The act of making a sudden noisy break. A personal or social separation, as between opposing factions. The act of severing. A personal or social separation, as between opposing factions. Vertical space available to allow easy passage under something. Permission to proceed. The plane was given clearance to land. The distance by which one thing clears another, the space between them. The separation of grain or seeds from the husks and straw. They used to do the threshing by hand, but now there are machines to do it. The act of separating grain from chaff. The winnowing was done by women. Blow away or off with a current of air. Winnow chaff. Select desirable parts from a group or list. Winnow the finalists from the long list of applicants. The act of separating grain from chaff. The winnowing was done by women. Blow on. The wind was winnowing her hair. Separate the chaff from grain by using air currents. She stood there winnowing grain all day in the field.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.